what do we do if we want to have people engaged on a Zoom call? What are the best practices we should follow if we want to stop people from getting distracted and multitasking while we're presenting on Zoom? And more importantly, what are the best practices overall that we should use to captivate our audience and make sure we get their undivided attention in a Zoom call? Don't worry, guys, we're going to address all these questions right now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Danilo Caprick here, aka the best dressed man in tech sales. And what we're going to go through in this video is what should you do when you're running a Zoom meeting in order to captivate your audience and make sure you can have the most effective meeting possible. All right, so in this video, we're going to walk through specific strategies that you can use on your next Zoom call to make sure you get the attention of your audience, you captivate them throughout, and more importantly, you prevent them from multitasking and doing other things that take the attention away from your meeting. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into it. All right, guys, so the first thing that we want to do when it comes to running an effective Zoom meeting and keeping the attention of our viewers is, and this is going to sound very basic, but a lot of people don't do it, is we want to say hello to every single person that gets on the call. And this might be difficult if you have a rather large audience, but if you have between 1 to let's say 9 people, it's actually not that difficult. All you have to do is when someone else's name pops up on the screen or their photo pops up, you want to just say, hey, hello, whatever their name is. Thanks for joining today. How are you? That's it. And if they respond, you're not concerned about that. What you want to do is just shed the spotlight on them for a second to give them a moment of acknowledgement and let them know that, hey, we see you, we recognize you, welcome to the call, right? And you want to do this because if someone was coming to your house or someone was coming to you in person, you would greet them, right? You wouldn't just ignore them or not say hello to them or not give them or offer them something, right? Maybe a glass of water or whatever. So we want to try to keep the same etiquette on Zoom. And an easy way to do this is simply by acknowledging the presence of everyone there, right? Depending on the audience, again, if it's smaller, you can interact a little bit further, maybe have a short conversation before everyone joins. But again, you want to say hello to everybody that's joining the call because again, that's going to give them a little bit of attention and give them that more incentive to participate in the call because they feel seen and heard, okay? So that's the first thing, say hello to everybody that joins. All right, guys, the second thing that we want to consider doing to have a highly effective Zoom meeting is we want to get our audience to make a choice. But not just any choice, we want to specifically ask them to consider the choice of deciding to say no to distractions and deciding to say no to multitasking during our call, okay? And shout out to Chris Orlow, the former head of sales at Gong. I saw him do this on a webinar recently and it was amazing what it did to myself, right? So what happened was right before we got into the meat of the webinar, Chris said, hey guys, I know we have a lot of distractions around us. You could be emailing, you could be slacking, you could be this or that. What I'm gonna ask you guys to do is to say no to those things for the next 30 minutes and really consider giving us your full undivided attention because if you do, you're going to learn a lot more from the next 30 minutes. And when he said that, it really kind of woke me up and I said, wow, like he's right. I probably should just really put aside everything and just, listen to the webinar. And again, calling that out is a small thing you can do to increase the likelihood that people really do give you their undivided attention. And the reason this works is because when you make that kind of an ask, right? If people should start to multitask or get pulled away into things, there's going to be something that perks up in their mind that says, wait a second, like Chris said, try not to do this. And it's going to create a little bit of cognitive dissonance for them. All right. So I'm not saying this is a foolproof strategy, but again, this is going to increase the likelihood that you get the full energy and attention of your audience and that they actually say no to multitasking because you made the ask at the very beginning to not do that. All right. So that's number 2 to keep in mind. All right, guys, rule number 3, it's going to sound basic, but again, a lot of people don't do this. Turn on your camera. All right, turn on your camera. Your camera should always be on because as the leader of the meeting, people are going to follow your lead, okay? People are going to do what you do in most cases, so you want to have your webcam on. And even if people show up and they don't have their camera on, you don't have to force them. You don't have to ask them to turn on their camera. All you can say is, hey guys, welcome to the call. I see some of you are not turning on your cameras. Maybe it's a bad hair day, that's fine. I'm gonna keep my camera on if that's all right with you guys. If so, feel free to turn yours on, but there's no need, all right? And just saying something like that, emphasizing that you're gonna keep your camera on, is more likely to entice them to turn their cameras on. Because again, you are the leader of the meeting. People are more likely to do and reproduce the behaviors that you're doing. So again, that's a nice way to get people more engaged by turning on your camera first. Because let's be real, guys, law of reciprocity is something I really believe in. If you do something, chances are other folks will follow. If you do not do something, chances are those folks won't do it either, right? So again, turn on your camera, don't forget it, basic Zoom hygiene. All right, guys, the next thing that we want to do, you've been noticing me do it a lot in this video, is talk with your hands, all right? Put your hands in visible view of the camera. And the reason you want to do this is because it shows that you're not multitasking, right? If people can see your hands, they know you're not typing, they know you're not on your phone, they know you're not doing something else, right? And even when I'm in a sales meeting, I'm eager to not show my hands below the camera because I don't want them to think that I'm just writing down everything they say. I don't want them to think I'm just taking notes the whole time. I want them to speak freely, right? So I do my best whether I'm going like this, whether I'm putting my hand against my face, or I'll just sit like this sometimes, but I want to show my hands in the camera. Not only to inspire them to show their hands, but also it gives them something else to look at, right? Let's be real, in a Zoom background, you only have so many things to look at and capture the attention of your audience. Why not talk with your hands, give them something else to follow outside of the words that are coming out of your mouth, all right? So for that reason, we want to use our hands to keep people engaged, give them something to follow, and again, it just kind of makes the call more interesting. So talk with your hands. All right, guys, the last and final thing I want to mention when it comes to having a more effective Zoom call, this works best if you have a large audience, but let's say you have more than 10 people on a call. What you want to do is ask them to participate in the chat. So for example, at the very beginning, let's say you're sharing your screen, right? Hey guys, if you can see my screen, put a thumbs up in the chat, right? Or let's say you just revealed some kind of point or some kind of insight, or you asked a question, whatever, you can say, let me hear your responses in the chat. Or, hey, if this is valuable so far, if this is resonating so far, drop this emoji in the chat, right? Whatever it is, but if you can get people to use the chat or to use the raise hand function, whatever it is, but to interact with the actual Zoom meeting itself, that's going to engage, or that's going to result in higher engagement, right? If people are actively participating when you ask them, that means that they're focused, they're dialed in, right? And that's something you can do to prevent them from multitasking. Because if every 5 or 10 minutes you're asking them, hey, throw this in the chat, hey, do this in the chat, hey, let me hear it from the chat, right? They're going to stick to the chat more, right? They're gonna stick to the video. So again, that's something that you can do. Really, really works well if you have a large audience, but also even if you have a small audience of 0 to 5 people, let's say people are nonverbal, people are not talking that much, you can say, hey guys, I don't wanna interrupt too much, but if this is still resonating, drop this emoji in the chat, right? Whatever it might be. So again, these are techniques that you can use to make sure that you're increasing the engagement of your viewers, but also keeping it interesting, and again, giving yourself the chance of having the best possible call on Zoom. All right, guys, so there you have it. We walked through a few specific strategies that you can use to have a highly effective Zoom meeting where you captivate and capture the attention of your audience at all times. All right, so let's recap a couple of the things that we talked about. Number one, we talked about how to say hello and greet every person that comes onto the call, all right? Whether it's 10 people, 15 people, if you can say the names of folks who are joining and shed the spotlight on them for 1 second, it's going to make them feel more welcome and increase the likelihood that they engage in your meeting because you are recognizing them from the very beginning, all right? So don't forget that. The next thing that we talked about is to ask them to make a choice, right? We talked about asking them to make the choice to say no to multitasking for the next 30 minutes or however long your meeting is going to be. All right, so that again is going to increase the likelihood that they don't get distracted, that they don't do other things while you're speaking. Okay, next thing we talked about was using your hands, right? Give them something else to look at outside of your words, and also emphasize certain points with your hands, right? Based on what you're saying, you can use your hands to emphasize certain things. And again, it's going to keep it more interesting and give them something else to look at outside of your words, all right? And the last thing that we talked about was to ask them to participate throughout, right? Use the chat feature, use the other interactive parts of Zoom, and have them actually say things when you want to confirm something or make sure something's resonating. Again, if you have a large audience, this is really effective, and it's an easy way to get people to interact without having to come off mute and start talking, all right? All right, guys, and the last one I almost forgot was, of course, turn on your camera, make sure that is happening. And again, when other people don't turn their camera on, don't force them, don't make it seem like they have to, but just say, hey, that's fine. I'm gonna keep my camera on. Can you guys see me okay? Something like that. But either way, guys, there you have it. Some specific strategies that you can use when you have your next Zoom call to keep people as engaged as possible. And again, increase the likelihood that you get their full undivided attention. So that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you got some value out of this. If you did, please hit the subscribe button below. And also, if you're not doing so already, go follow me on LinkedIn, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy now.